Good Sunday morning and welcome to another edition of At Issue. I'm Corey Smith.
And I'm Sue O'Connell. Coming up, we'll speak with Boston Globe reporter Adrian Walker, who worked on the paper's all-encompassing retelling of the infamous Charles Stewart murder case, and former Boston City Councilor Tito Jackson. He's going to share his recollections of the case and the turmoil that came with it.
Well, we start with the presidential campaign. Just 9 days out from the all-important New Hampshire primary, we're going to speak to two political observers about that contest in just a minute. But today, it is all eyes on the Iowa caucuses.
We finally get some voting going tomorrow. We sent our political reporter, Matt Pritchard, who's fresh off paternity leave, into the Hawkeye state. Matt, let's start with the Republican race. Polls indicate former President Trump appears to be way ahead. Do you get the sense from voters out there in the snow that this is a battle for second place?
I don't think so, Sue, and I think that's what you hear from the polling. It's what you also hear from many of the pundits on many of the major news networks. But as we speak with voters and we see them raise their hands when they're asked who they're going to be caucusing for, we're seeing them actually raise their hands for other candidates. Donald Trump is certainly something that a lot of people are taking a look at, but Nikki Haley and Ron DeSantis are both options that voters appear to be interested in. We've been at events today in the middle of a blizzard, and they are still coming out and weighing their different options and hoping to make their voice heard on Monday night. We know the caucus process, it's a little bit different. You get a lot of people in a room and opinions can be swayed this way and that as they try and make up their mind on which candidate they want to support. But if you go strictly by polling, that's certainly what it shows. But voters here, they take their responsibility seriously, and we'll see what they have to say on Monday night.
With that said, Matt, you mentioned the folks who were showing up in a blizzard just for these town halls and these candidate forums. Do you get the sense that weather may play any sort of role come turnout on Monday?
It's a great question. I mean, we have seen some candidates canceling events. Nikki Haley canceled all her events on Friday because of the weather that was taking place. So certainly the candidates seem to be deterred to get out there, for at least some of them. Voters, though, they say this is Iowa in January, and whether it's 50 degrees and sunny or sub-zero temperatures and in a blizzard, as it will be on Monday night, they plan to come out and caucus and do their duty, as they believe it is their duty to be the first state to kick off the presidential nominating process for the United States. So we'll just have to wait and see. It may be a lower turnout. Of course, you know, people are going to have to get out on the roadways. They're going to have to drive to their caucus center after work, after a long day, and then ultimately sit in there for hours and try and make a decision. So maybe some will use the weather just as an excuse to not have to go. But the Iowans that I've spoken with say that they are taking it seriously and they want to be there. They plan to be there, and we'll just have to wait and see what happens.
Now, just a quick follow-up to that. Are you feeling any difference in the energy of the candidates because there may be a low turnout, which means there could be a chaotic turnout? Low turnout means anything could happen. Do you feel any of that shifting?
You know, not necessarily. I mean, you see all of the candidates sort of sticking to what we've seen them do over the course of the campaign, holding these town halls, answering these different questions, and ultimately getting asked about Donald Trump quite a bit because he has that big lead in all of that different polling. I think most of these candidates essentially are just hoping that Monday night they'll see some sort of shakeup take place, whether it's a low turnout or a big turnout, that they'll be able to somehow shake the ground a little bit, maybe get a big momentum boost, and then move on to New Hampshire, where they can build on top of that. So there's a lot of unknowns right now, and the weather certainly is playing a factor in that in terms of what turnout we might see. But hey, that just adds to the political fun, right?
All right, Matt, let's talk about the two candidates who are trying to bring down Donald Trump. We know Governor DeSantis has poured a lot of resources into Iowa. We know Nikki Haley is closing the gap on the former president. Is it make or break for DeSantis? And what are you hearing from the Haley campaign? Are they sort of trying to set expectations out there?
Yeah, I think it's pretty clear that this is a key moment for Ron DeSantis. You mentioned there he poured so much effort, time, and money into the Hawkeye state. He went full Chuck Grassley, made it to 99 counties, to all those different places, spoke with all those different voters, and I'm sure it's discouraging for him and his campaign to see that polling numbers showing Nikki Haley moving up and even over him into that second place spot here in Iowa. So we'll have to wait and see. what actually takes place. I think no matter what, he's continuing on past Iowa into New Hampshire, probably into South Carolina as well, because his candidacy has been so high profile. But I think it would be a kneecapping moment for his campaign if they weren't able to be successful here in Iowa. Now, as for Nikki Haley, obviously her campaign is thrilled to see this momentum boost coming through, and she's being attacked for it by a number of different campaigns, including Donald Trump, the front runner, and then Ron DeSantis as well, who's right there neck and neck with her. They're hoping that they may be able to sort of steal Iowa and then move to New Hampshire, where she has spent a lot of time, a lot of money, got that endorsement from Governor Chris Sununu. So if she can somehow pull off that second place finish in Iowa and, more importantly, get closer to Donald Trump, New Hampshire really becomes a critical moment. She will be coming in with a major momentum boost.
Matt, just very quickly, we don't have time to explain why, but is there any sign of life that there are Democrats campaigning in Iowa?
I have not seen any of it, Sue, to be honest with you. The Democrats seem pretty quiet, but we remember the last caucus, they had a lot of trouble with their app and getting results out the door. This time, they're taking their time, and in about a month or so, maybe we'll find out what the write-in actually says about the Democratic candidate.
Matt, are you sure you're there? Because there's a Boston sign behind you. Are you really in Iowa, or are you pretending?
I know. Look at that. So Vivek Ramaswamy held one of his town halls at an old Boston's restaurant and pub. We just had to go to this one. It just made good sense, right?
Yeah, a nice little slice of home, albeit the weather aside. All right.
Sorry.
Our Matt Pritchard in Iowa for us. Matt, thank you so much. Matt's going to join us tomorrow night as well, live at 7:30 for At Issue Decision 2024. Starting Monday, we're going to bring you up-to-the-minute campaign news with guests, live reports, and analysis. It starts tomorrow night at 7:30 right here on NBC 10 Boston. All right, let's continue the conversation on the presidential campaign. And joining us are Jennifer Nassour, former chairwoman of the Massachusetts Republican Party and co-founder of the Pocketbook Project, which looks to energize women to be the next generation of political leaders, and Samuel Gebru, political science professor at Tufts University and managing director of Black Lion Strategies, a social impact and public affairs consulting firm. Thank you both for being here. We really appreciate it. Jennifer, we're going to start with you. You are behind Nikki Haley for this race. What's her best case to win the nomination, to climb that Trump mountain and overtake him?
So I think best case is going to be, let's see what happens with the Iowa caucus. And I think if Nikki Haley can get somewhere around 20%, she comes out very strong going into New Hampshire. Now, New Hampshire is completely different than what Iowa is, because Iowa is a caucus, New Hampshire primary. That 40% of independent voters in New Hampshire also get to vote in the primary. We see those poll numbers for her continue to climb. She is the only candidate in this race whose poll numbers have consistently gone up. Trump's have flatlined and DeSantis's have tanked.
Does she have to win New Hampshire or just come in a respectable second place, especially given that the polls are now starting to move in her favor?
I think as long as she comes in a strong second place, she is in a phenomenal position to move forward to South Carolina and on to Super Tuesday.
Samuel, Chris Christie dropping out of the race last week. The race continues on both sides to be cuckoo, right? We just really can't predict. We have no evidence from the past to predict what's going to happen in the future. Donald Trump spending most of his time in courtrooms and not and doing a few rallies, but not on the campaign trail. What's your take on what's going to happen? Is this Donald Trump's race to lose, or is there going to be some big surprise here?
You know, given his previous election, I think we should expect a surprise. There's a long road between now and the Republican convention, and between then and the November election. I think the decision that Chris Christie made was for the good of not only his party, but the good of the nation. And I think that if there's a strong backing for Nikki Haley, we can see some sort of progress in this race. There needs to be a strong effort, in my opinion, to do whatever it takes to stop Donald Trump from becoming the nominee. But he has sort of coasted by, right? He has not participated in any of the debates. He has gotten a big platform to himself in these town halls and whatnot. He's definitely taken this sort of stage of being the presumptive nominee of his party. And I think that if there's a strong movement behind Nikki Haley, and if perhaps Chris Christie endorses her at some point in the next few weeks, that can definitely move in her favor.
With Christie out of the race, he was doing something that DeSantis and Haley wouldn't do full force the way he was, which I think worked in their benefit when it comes to ultimately one of them maybe winning the nomination, needing Trump's base to vote and come out for them. Now that he's out of the race, does it behoove both of them to sort of pick up that torch and say, look, you're going to have to start going at this guy the way Chris Christie was to win over voters?
Well, I think that, there's two different schools of thoughts. So, yes, you could do that. Did it win Christie any more votes? No, because the most recent poll had him at 12%. So I don't think that that's actually a great strategy. I think what Nikki Haley has been doing is taking the high road, right, and just laying out the difference between her and Trump. It's very, very significant. You can see the differences, and you can see the style. And quite honestly, aren't we sick and tired of politicians, supposed leaders, calling other leaders names and making fun of them and putting them in a corner? I would rather have a leader who's going to lead from in front and bring the country ahead with her in a positive direction than going negative.
So let me ask you this. Do you think she sees Trump as a threat to democracy the way that Chris Christie sees Trump as a threat to democracy?
She has said a number of times, every time she's interviewed, he views January 6th as a great day. She views January 6th as a terrible day.
All right, Samuel, let's talk about the Democratic Party, because you're getting kind of a pass here because of what's going on the Republican side where, Trump's not showing up. There's like these two races. Sometimes people forget that Trump is in the Republican Party and he's actually in the primary race, like real people. Yeah. Meanwhile, in New Hampshire, Democrats aren't competing. There's really no primary. Yeah. But there is a primary. And then the DNC cracks down on the New Hampshire Democrats saying, your delegate business, what you're doing is useless. Yeah. Right? So does this hurt Joe Biden in the race? And is this a wound with South Carolina that's going to be going first in the next cycle? What's your take on how people are feeling about the Democratic Party in this race?
Well, so I think that's a complicated question. There's several layers here. One, what the DNC said about the New Hampshire primary, calling it useless, I think was inappropriate. I do agree that a state like South Carolina should go first. I think it's more reflective of the national electorate, and also South Carolina has a better track record in predicting who the nominee will be as opposed to New Hampshire. But this does not discount the strong care that New Hampshire voters take in the primary process. They are very engaged. They are well informed. I think Biden snubbing New Hampshire in the way that he's doing may hurt him, but in the overall span of things, I don't think it really matters as much for him.
Do you think there's not? Sorry,
okay, I was going to say, what do you think, Jeff?
Yeah, I agree with a lot of what you say, Samuel. I think that in the interest of democracy and you being a leader, you can't say that it doesn't mean anything, that their primary doesn't mean anything. This is a state in the United States that's voting. And I think, if they wouldn't go in line, then you say, okay, you know what, why don't we work on this in the future? I'm going to participate in the primary. I'm not happy about this. South Carolina, we love you. We wish that you were number one, but you're not. We're going to work on this in the future. Yeah. Rome wasn't built in a day, and neither are changing any political rules.
Yeah. So Donald Trump has the chance to lose once or twice. He could lose in the primary. He could lose the general. And what happens next, a lot of people are concerned about, given what we had happen on January 6th. I want to play a soundbite. And we've heard some crazy things last week from Trump and his lawyers about his whole notion of immunity as president. But there is concerns being raised about the threat of violence depending on what happens in this election. Let's take a listen.
And I think they feel this is the way they're going to try and win. And that's not the way it goes. It'll be bedlam in the country. It's a very bad thing. It's a very bad precedent. As we said, it's the opening of a Pandora's box.
Samuel, are you concerned about the potential for political violence? It's a question I want to ask you too, Jennifer, as well, but are you concerned about political violence depending on what happens?
Absolutely. We saw that not just on January 6th, but go back to Charlottesville, go back to other instances where we've seen Trump. I mean, Trump is a demagogue. He's a rabble-rouser. He has a track record of doing this. We should take him at his word for the threats that he's making now. And the concern is this goes at the heart of our democracy. If there is a strong cohort of people in this country who do not see the result as being legitimate, who do not see the institutions as being valid, that goes to the soul of our democracy. And I think that we should be taking this threat seriously regardless.
How would you anticipate Nikki Haley winning this primary contest and Trump having to kind of exit stage left? Do you think he would?
He's going to be angry and childish and throw sand around and throw toys around no matter what happens. And so I think that at this point, listen, my plea to voters is this. We see, especially here in Massachusetts and in other states around the country, that only around 20 to 25% of the electorate comes out and votes in primaries. Therefore, when you're left with a decision, you are left with the polarized decisions. Please go out and vote, right? That is the most important thing, is to get out and have your voice heard. If you are in a state where it is like Massachusetts, like New Hampshire, where you're an independent and you can vote, it is very important to get out there and vote. That's how this changes. So unless Donald Trump is given a mandate that this is someone else won this election, and it's not just 8 million votes, it is a substantial loss that he loses by in a primary, that is the only way to finally get rid of him. His people will always be behind him no matter what. However, I think that at the end of the day, when they see that the country is moving forward in a way that is positive, in a positive direction, they will change course.
All right, well, no matter what happens, we hope both of you will come back on that issue and give us your insight. We really do appreciate it. Samuel Gebru, Jennifer Nassour, thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
All right, coming up next, the new reporting on a dark period in Boston's history.
Yeah, a series of new reports by the Boston Globe, a podcast, and a documentary series are revisiting the Charles Stewart murder case. It led to a long overdue public apology to men wrongfully accused. Adrian Walker from the Boston Globe and Tito Jackson join us next.
What's your name, sir? Stewart, Chuck Stewart.
He's been a murder at the Mission Projects.
My wife's been shot. I've been shot.
Husband and wife who was pregnant.
Out of the way.
That was a sampling of HBO's recent docuseries Murder in Boston, Roots, Rampage, and Reckoning.
The three-part series retells and re-examines the story of the infamous Charles Stewart murder case in 1989, the fatal shooting of Stewart's wife in Boston's Mission Hill neighborhood, and his claims that a black man pulled the trigger reopened the city's racial wounds that were still fresh from the aftermath of the 1974 busing decision. The docuseries was made in association with the Boston Globe, which published its own review and re-examination of this case, from the investigation to the local media coverage.
And joining us to discuss the series and the podcast are Boston Globe reporter Adrian Walker and former Boston City Councilor Tito Jackson, who lived through that time. Thank you both for joining us.
All right, I want to start where the docuseries ends. It touches on the fact that Willie Bennett, Adrian Swanson, never received a public apology from the city of Boston for being wrongfully accused of murdering Carol Ann Diamatti. That changed last month. Take a look.
I want to say to Mr. Swanson and Mr. Bennett, the entire Bennett family, and Boston's entire black community, I am so sorry for what you endured.
Got that.
Adrian, how do you go about looking at a story? You know, you were at the Boston Globe at the time that it happened. Sometimes these facts, not so much facts, get kind of intertwined in the narrative, what we think happened. How do y'all approach it freshly?
It takes a long time, and it involves, going back and retracing all your steps and turning over a bunch of new stones.
Is there a balance between telling a story that is familiar for folks who were here around that time and for a brand new audience, the HBO audience? How do you sort of strike that balance and making sure you're not leaving some parts out that folks who were here already know about, but folks who weren't don't know?
No, we didn't think of it as two audiences, and we didn't think of it as an HBO audience. And more importantly, we didn't assume people knew anything about it, It happened 34 years ago. 3/4 of the people who live in Boston now did not live here then. And we didn't assume anything.
Tito, one of the things that I took away from the podcast and also your appearance in the docuseries, over the years we've had a number of conversations about a number of things, and I very vividly recall when you were city councilor, I think there was a shooting at English High School, and I think then Commissioner Billy Evans was saying, we're going to talk to all the kids, and you offered some cautionary language about how to approach the kids. And I said to you something like, well, if my kid was in that school, I'd want everyone lined up. And you said to me, you don't know what that's like.
Absolutely. It was the Burke High School.
Right.
And interestingly, when I walked into that school, as someone who was a known entity, I was actually able to understand and figure out what was actually going on within 15 minutes. And then within a half an hour, I figured out the person's name. In the same situation here, wrangling, kicking in doors, messing with skinny 14-year-old kids who didn't really fit the description is really something that actually pushed me into action at the NAACP at the time, but really hurt and this was somewhat triggering, and I want to thank Adrian for the courage to really push this forward. But this is triggering to a lot of black men in the city of Boston and people who were assumed to be black men also at that time.
Yeah, I mean, when we interviewed people about who had lived through this experience, including Tito and his cousin Ron Bell, I mean, one of the things that really struck me was how fresh these wounds are, you know, and how visceral it all is. I mean, it affects people in ways that law enforcement people just don't get.
Yeah, when I talk to law enforcement, folks who worked on the case and were active law enforcement then, a lot of them say to me, they actually thought that the treatment was fair in the podcast and in the docuseries. But one of the things they felt is that the shock of showing up and seeing a pregnant woman shot and a husband shot, and acknowledging the discrepancy between black deaths and white deaths, but that, you know, everyone, including black officials, reacted in the same way, but that the next step of who was in charge and calling for this, that was what they were concerned. They were getting orders from people.
You know, that really isn't true. The first detectives who interviewed Chuck Stewart in the hospital, you know, Bobby Tillin and Bobby Ahern, immediately suspected his story. It's not true that everybody believed it.
And I didn't know that. And so for me, first, I had never seen Carol DeMady Stewart in that condition, which is that I just had not. And my heart obviously still goes out to the family. But this piece around police not listening to other police, overruling, and also no one ever apologizing. And there's debates about this. The city of Boston and every single one of the successive mayors should have made this apology. And I will also, and Adrian's a friend of mine, I believe the owners of the Globe today and the Herald should also apologize based on their coverage of that time.
When you hear that, what your thoughts on that?
I thought what Mayor Wu did, and I wrote this in the paper, was a great thing to do. The mayors, there have been two mayors in between Ray Flynn and Michelle Wu, and they both stayed as far away from this as possible. I thought the apology was a great.
What do you feel are sort of the media lessons learned for how we cover things like crime, things like race, especially in the city of Boston?
Well, the overwhelming lesson to me was just to be more skeptical about listening to official sources. I mean, one of the problems, and not the only one, was that we went to the same people we went to every time there was a murder, and we probably didn't ask enough questions or approach it with enough skepticism, and there also was not enough attention paid to the racial dynamics of the story.
One of the things that I haven't made my way through the entire podcast, but watching the docuseries, and they're showing the footage of the cops going around the Mission Hill neighborhood, and some of those cops are black. To be in that time, in that area, what were the feelings towards black police officers at that time?
It was just as harmful. To have, and in some ways it felt even more harmful to have black police officers thrown out. And understand, I need to note, at the time when we're talking about searching people, we're literally talking about people's pants being dropped every single time. So every time I got stopped, they made us drop our pants and dehumanize us in that way. So that was something that made all of us, very angry and very uncomfortable. And also, as Adrian noted, there was scuttlebutt in the neighborhoods and communities that, of course, a brother didn't do this. And so that, though, and mind you, there were all kinds of rumors that as we see from the movie, but when it comes down to it, no one really wanted to follow up on those components at the time.
One point about black police officers, when Wayne Budd, who was U.S. Attorney, and his deputy at the time, Ralph Martin, investigated this, thinking about bringing federal civil rights charges, one of the big obstacles was that all the cops who did this weren't white. There were black and white cops involved in this, which is one of the reasons it didn't make for a clean civil rights violation prosecution.
It's also a reason why leadership matters. And who's in that corner office and how they guide at the time is a critical component into how these things get navigated. And actually, we juxtapose. And I don't know if Mayor Wu was actually alive. I'm not going to do the math right now, but I don't know if she was alive at the time. But I definitely think it is a step forward for the city.
Okay. Well, thank you both for being here. It's such a great series, such a great podcast, and really for somebody who isn't from the area, a great history lesson just about the city of Boston and the politics of pretty much everything involved in life in the city. So we really appreciate you guys doing the work.
Thanks so much for having me.
All right. Next Sunday, we are taking our show on the road. We are headed to New Hampshire.
Yes, starting tomorrow night at 7:30, we'll do live programs focused on the presidential race and the New Hampshire primary, including live shows from Manchester.
Thank you so much for joining us for another edition of At Issue. I'm Corey Smith.
And I'm Sue O'Connell. Enjoy the day.